the first time, you really start to see there's so many differences between the two generations, which is quite strange. I don't want to always put social media as a root cause, but it is the biggest accelerator of change in human history. And then when the kids are looking at it growing up and they're seeing people and then they haven't got the intelligence to differentiate between what's being said seriously and what's being said for rage bait or controversy and to just try and provoke people.
The irony of the whole social media is that it was created to kind of form relationships and get people to talk, and it's literally had the complete opposite effect.
Your extreme is gone from what was the richest kid in school who might have just, dad might have drove a Mercedes. Now you've got a 13-year-old that's driving a Rolls-Royce. When kids aren't coached and guided and mentored by the right people, they just end up going and finding anybody that's spouting any old shit on the internet. We seem to have a new breed of youth coming through today, don't we?
Yobbos.
No, that's what I'd immediately call them.
No, that's only some of them.
Very true. It's the same as every generation, though. But I think it's a strange thing that's happening that we've seen, and we're doing a big comparison check on how we grew up now. We see we're starting to hit that age at 30, aren't we? Where you're starting to do comparisons to the children that are coming up now and growing. And I think for the first time, maybe when I was 26, 27, you really start to see the gap between you and what is now essentially the new age, the new generation, 18-year-old kind of thing. That 10-year gap, 10-year gap. And you see there's so many differences between the two generations, which is quite strange. But obviously when you see it for the first time, it is a bit of a weird thing, because you're obviously, when you're going through sort of school, and we remember we were the last of the 90s kids, weren't we, really? So it was 95, 94 for you. And I remember that generation. Are we millennial? What are we?
I'm a millennial. You're a different generation to me, technically.
Wrong.
You're like Gen X or something, or Gen X, I think.
Wrong.
Really?
It's literally like 1 year in it. Like I'm actually the better generation. You're a shit generation.
No.
Wrong.
I know. I'm gonna take a rubber dinghy and cross to your generation. I'm gonna cross the channel.
Shooting that dinghy, can stay over there.
But we are.
Nah, you're all right.
We are very much of that. We obviously grew up in the same house, so we're still very similar. And there was that switch over now at the age of 30 where it blows my mind even still now that people, and I remember the fact that it was, if you're born in the year 2000, they became 18 in the year 2018, which is now a lifetime away. And it was like, and people would say, oh yeah, what year were you born? And we're like, 2000. And they were in a club drinking alcohol. Obviously you needed your ID, you needed to be 18. I was like, wait, you're allowed in? And it was that first insight, wasn't it? But then obviously now you're seeing how different they are. And obviously I've got a 2-year-old daughter, and I'm mindful of how quickly kids are growing up and whether that's a good thing or a bad thing.
Well, I tell you what's mad when I think about it now. Although we'll look at it and think, Jesus, these, like, how on earth are you as old as you are? 'Cause it's the year 2000. They probably look at us and going like, you're 19. Jesus, how old are you? Probably like we look probably horrendously old for them, and they look horrendously young for us.
I am getting that.
Funny. Like, I'm thinking like, bloody hell, like, yeah, because it's worse for you when you're single, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it's... Cheers. But it is true, because I do get that. And, you know, you're out and you speak to people, there's lads and girls, and it's the same thing. And you say like, oh no, I'm 30. And they go, fucking hell, you're 30. And I'm like, oh no. It's not good for your self-esteem. But it is also quite funny, because that was us when we were looking at people. And and I know you rinse me for this still, where I always thought when we were sort of fresh out of COVID, 24, 25, you were 27. And then you got a little bit older, and I was like, bloody hell, I said, you're still going to be going. It's so sad. You're going to be going out when you're 28, 29. It's really sad, that is. Now, bear in mind, I'm not going clubbing or anything, like, but, you know, going to a nice bar, and like, if there's good music and stuff, still nothing wrong with that.
No, not at all.
You still go.
Oh yeah, all the time. Out on the lash every Friday.
That's how you know you're old, because you say out on the lash.
Exactly, and I don't want to take it back ever. I'm always going to stick to my roots, my generation.
Isn't it funny? Because that is the thing, isn't it? Where you do have, and again, I go back to the point of it, is the cultural differentiations between the two generations, and you see it, and it becomes more obvious as we're now 30 and you speak to the 18, 19, 20-year-olds, and it's just so vastly different to what we had growing up. Still some similarities, but again, question is that, are they growing up too fast? What are the issues now? And where are you thinking that kids are losing out on their childhood?
Well, again, I think a lot of these things derive themselves from social media and pressures to look a certain way for girls, or to have earned a certain amount of money as a guy. Like, I watch videos, and there's a YouTube channel, The Desirable Truth or something. It's this guy kind of goes around and speaks to interviews like women, and he's kind of like, how much money would you want your partner to earn? And they're like 19, 20, 21. So you'd expect and then they'll say, who, do you want to be with, what sort of age? And they're like, mid-20s, something like that. It's like, oh, how much money do you want them to earn? It's like, oh, 100K. And it's like, what? Like early-ish 20s. Like, but then there's pressure for men to try and earn more money, women for pressure to look older or look and act a certain way. So it's like there's a lot more social pressure nowadays than there was say, when we were growing up, because it was just more community-based, whereas now it's global. Ty, I don't know about you, but I feel like we're having a great video, but there's some serious ingredient missing.
I've just checked the recipe book code, and I've looked. There's no subscribe button. Hit the subscribe button below, because this video is cooking.
We're waiting.
The annoying thing is, I don't want to always put social media as a root cause of things that have happened, but it is the biggest accelerator of change in human history, I would say. Almost some of the inventions of some sciences and medicines and biologies have obviously made massive impact, but the acceleration of society and culture through social media is absolutely just groundbreaking. It never happened so quickly, because you are being exposed to so many different viewpoints, so many different people, so many different role models and people that you wouldn't have known before. And now we've got people like your Andrew Tates that are dictating to men what they should do and how they should act and be. And the problem is, some people take all of that person's messaging rather than the key points. Does Andrew Tate have some great points about what men should be and how they should behave and how they should act? Of course he does. Is there then countless other points that he makes which make him completely sexist and misogynist and a bit of a twat? Of course he does. He does, but that's the thing. But he has to say those things to get people to click on him. And then when the kids are looking at it growing up, and they're seeing people, and then they haven't got the mindset or the, without, calling it what it is, they haven't got the intelligence to differentiate between what's being said seriously and what's being said for rage bait or purposeful controversy and to just try and provoke people. They can't differentiate between the two. So they kind of then go around spouting off the same thing that they're hearing. And again, it's creating this sort of mindset where they think they can do or behave in certain ways. It's weird. It's weird to see.
Yeah, I think it comes from like the loneliness of them not having friends who are cultivated that well, who were younger. And I suppose the irony of the whole social media is that it was created to kind of form relationships and get people to talk, and it's literally had the complete opposite effect, and more people are more alone than they've ever been before social media existed. And it's like you're kind of you're little fish in a big pond, instead of just being like a little fish in a little communal pond where everyone like sort of fished and ate the same food and everyone kind of like, got on. Whereas now it's like you're in a big ocean. And I think that's why people will end up growing up so fast, because they'll see adults that they want to be like, and they're like, oh, I want to have a car and I want to have this and and you just wouldn't have seen it when we were that age.
Well, you're comparing yourself to a smaller cohort of people, like people that were your age, like you said, at school. So if you went to a school, you'd all be kind of similar background, because you'd have to come from the similar area. which means that, look, you was always having one extreme end of the scale. There's being calling it what it is. There was the poorest kid in school and there was the richest kid in school. Nobody really knew exactly who they were, but there was still a scale. But even the poorest versus the richest, because you were all from the same area within a catchment, it was never going to be too extreme. Whereas now you're seeing kids that are 14 flexing Rolexes and £200,000 watches and all these madness things that no one can afford apart from the top 1% of the 1%. And that's where your extreme is gone from what was the richest kid in school who might have just had, his dad might have drove a Mercedes. And now you've got a 13-year-old that's driving a Rolls-Royce. And your extreme has changed. And then the same on the poor side.
Yeah, I mean, you said that, and it just, I don't know, I'm detracting a bit, but you said poor, and it made me think, Mickey Flanagan, he's like, I'm poor, but you're fucking skimp. It's like that really poor kid at school. But, I don't know, anyway, that was kind of a funny sidetrack. But I think, how do you think we kind of get back to, I don't know, a better place than where we're currently at?
So I think we're talking about, like, what are the damage of the kids growing up too fast. I think a lot of it genuinely comes from the freedom that we seem to have just been allowed children to have within certain realms now. I think the freedom for them to go out and be physically free without too much parental control in that side of things is great. Being able to go out on the bikes, go and explore, go and have that level of freedom without feeling like they're wrapped in bubble wrap, cotton wool, whichever one. But they're being given too much freedom overall where they become exposed to things like the TV. They got their own Netflix account. They've got their own TV in the bedroom. They've got their own smartphone so they can access the internet, access information, access all that. And that's being they've got complete freedom there, which is then exposing them to all this shit. And then equally, they're not being policed properly. So I think the discipline has gone. So I think a lot of it, to be honest, is the parents that should be to blame, but also the societal allowance for that discipline has gone. I think certainly amongst lads, like young lads and men, we talk about this into the manosphere with Louis Theroux and all these toxic masculine men. A lot of them wouldn't be so toxic if they got a smack around the head when they were growing up and told that's wrong. No, you don't do that. You don't behave like that. And that now, if you did that, you'd be getting Child Protective Services coming and knocking on the door and taking your kid away.
No, but it's and actually, I've just thought of something that, again, it's why are kids growing up so fast? Well, the answer to it is, one, we're allowing them to, but then we're also forcing it on him in some ways. Like, I think with voting, 16-year-olds can now vote on the outcome of this country. How much responsibility is that? I mean, there isn't much more responsibility in a country than your vote towards your beliefs. And you've not lived an adult life, or it's not even so much that. You could just look at it and that it adds a lot of pressure again. And we're forcibly trying to get kids to grow up to what? To vote. Like, it's just a necessary pressure.
Did that get passed?
Yeah. Yeah, it's passed, yeah.
So 16-year-olds now can actually
in the
vote.
next general election, they'll be voting, yeah. Well, like some of the polls will change because they all vote green because everything's free. So why the fuck would you not vote green? Free.
Well,
free. Free meaning someone else pays for it. And
Essentially.
when you're a child and you're dependent on your parents, obviously you want free shit, don't you?
Wild. But again, it buys into the point and it adds to the point where, like I said, too much free reign has been given, but also too much sort of too much power. Like, these kids are running around now, like even with the teachers, like it was in a classroom, the teacher was the most powerful individual in that room and they should be the most respected. They're the oldest, they've got the most experience, they're in charge of that classroom for the time. Now, look, the issue is you're always going to get the exception to the rule where you've got people abusing power. That is unfortunately always going to happen throughout human history because, in fact, you do just get arseholes and you do get bad people in positions of power, positions of respect. But because of those, what we've allowed is those bad people in the positions of power to basically, who have abused it, to basically say, right, we're now going to completely take all the power away from everyone. And then essentially now kids can do what they want in the class. They can leave. They don't need to put their hands up. They didn't do what they want. They can argue back. Then nothing's going to happen. Whereas even we were lucky. We weren't part of that generation, but our parents' generation, you would not be seen arguing back to the teacher. You'd be getting a smack.
You get the cane.
But that's what breeds respect and discipline, and that level of respect when you've got something, when you know there's a discipline for your actions, is, I think, at the core, is a really big cause as to why all the crime's gone up and all this madness has gone up, and the state of the country, because there's no actual punishment now for people. There's no discipline. No one's enforcing discipline. People are getting away with crimes if they're doing severe drug charges or severe crimes or assault, sexual assault, and all these violent, vile crimes, but there's no punishment for them. There's like people like robbery, theft. It's through an all-time high. London, you can't even go out now with your phone without getting snatched. Your watches, you can't wear a nice watch. Everything just gets robbed, nicked, stolen and taken. And what's the point? Why not? Because even if they get caught, I saw a video, Mark McCann did one, great YouTuber on the car scene. And he was doing a recovery video about recovering stolen vehicles. And this one car literally got taken. These guys went into this bloke's house, broke in, stood over his bed, middle of the night, with tools, and said, "Give us your keys to your Range Rover." And the guy was initially like, "No, get out of my house." Tried to just be a bit,
Mate,
typical, well
sleepy.
done. Nah, good for him, man
No,
of the
of course
house,
he is.
stepping up and sort of be firm even under that situation. But they were being hard and saying, "Look, like, you are giving us these keys, otherwise we're going to do your family in." And fair play, he made the right decision and let them have what they wanted to allow his family to remain safe. Now imagine the trauma after dealing with something like that in your own home. They managed to track the location of the car. The police were all involved, found it in a chop shop, and they bust down the door, got in, arrested 2 people who were working on the vehicle, the stolen vehicle, obviously part of this big organised crime racket. And do you know what happened to the 2 people that were stripping the car and selling the parts?
Nothing, probably.
Nothing at all. Absolutely nothing.
Can prove something, probably.
Didn't get jailed, didn't get punished, didn't get named, nothing. Nothing happened. And this bloke had his car put into a million pieces, so it was literally a write-off. The car was sold and it was just damaged to a point of reparation. Or past repair, sorry. And it was just literally, this guy's now got to deal with the trauma of having extra security in his house, his family thinking that anybody could break in at any minute, sleepless nights, and the people that are responsible get jacked. It makes you think, might as well go rob some cars.
I mean, the thing is, I think we've kind of all sort of forgotten what our government's there for. It's like, I think we've ended up getting into the mindset that we work for the government when it's like the government works for us, and we pay for the police and we pay for these services to keep us safe. That's the whole point. That's the only job a government's realistically got, is to look after, teach, and protect the citizens of the nation. And if they can't even arrest the right people who are going to cause violent crime or steal your car or rob you point blank or whatever, then they're not doing their job properly, and they need to be oofed.
100%. But there's just no funding. There's no resource to put them all in jail. That's why it's not happening. But again, it goes back to discipline from an early age, from the age of these children coming up from, I'm not saying that, the second somebody gets a bit lippy, smack around the head with a belt. But I am saying, if there's a continuous level of just disrespect, you got to realign people. They need to have a little, we got it as kids. We did us a world of favours. A good little clip round the ear was the rule in our household. 3 strikes and you're out.
Yeah.
A whack around the head.
But it is, you got to, I think it partly is just cyclical, where you've got, weak parents and parents that just kind of go, I know I'm not a parent, so it's easy for me to say, but you kind of just let them crack on and just be like, oh, be all right. And because it is a lot harder to have to do that. And I think because we've been through such, you might not have seen it, but, in a general if you look at the rest of the world where we are, we're extremely fortunate to be living in the UK, and we have a lot of, phones and TVs and all this sort of stuff. No matter if you're rich, poor, or whatever, we've all got these technologies, and I think it's just created an environment where parents aren't really bothering as much or putting the effort in, and eventually it's going to just kind of come full circle. Eventually, I do think that people are going to have to toughen up, because otherwise you're never going to get anything, and then the cycle will then continue again, and you'll go through a better time because people are going to be a lot tougher.
I think that is essentially true, but I do think the baseline, unless there's a big worldwide reset that's a big catastrophic event, which is coming, God knows, with Donald and his trigger happy fingers and what he's doing around the world
with his big button under his desk.
Exactly. Something comes, it does cause a big reset for people to kind of wake up a bit and bring themselves back together as a community and start to focus on more what's important. But the kids are the next generation. They're the future of the country, future of civilization. And you need to make sure that we invest the right time and energy into them to make sure that the future grows and looks promising. And in China, it's interesting. They've got a weird way of doing things, but they have a very country first mindset with how they operate. And they really are quite intentional about how they raise the children, how they put China as an important, like the country as a whole, as an important factor into their upbringing and how they're taught. Very important. It's something that we don't really have here. We just give free rein, and when kids aren't coached and guided and mentored by the right people, they just end up going and finding anybody that's spouting any old shit on the internet, whether it's your Tates, whether it's your Kim Kardashians, even for some of the women, and all these OnlyFans stars and Bonnie Blues, and it just creates a new normal. And then all of a sudden it's like you've got a surge of increase of OnlyFans girls at 18. The second they pass their birthday, it's like, right, accounts getting set up. And then the same thing on the male side, where it's like the way they see and treat people and how they behave as men is all over the place.
Yeah, I think we need to get solving the problem. I think it's like we have in business, like without a mission and without something to actually guide you, you're constantly looking for something, like you've said, to take you there. And we need to go back to the thing that made us great and where our culture and all these things kind of derive from, which in reality is the Christian values of the country, and family, togetherness, and community. And in the minute we get back to that, I think we're going to be a far better country, and people are going to be far happier.
Just better role models, isn't it? And newer role models. And I love this new positive influencer style of things with Jim Skinn and what he's doing. And he's I only came across him recently. We saw him walking through Birmingham. I don't know whether I was with you. I was with you. We were walking through Birmingham. We saw that Jim Skinn, didn't we? And we were with Aria.
I don't remember you pointing the person. What, we actually saw the person?
Yeah, he was streaming through Birmingham. But either way, he's a really positive guy with a great mindset and everything. He's really, looking on teaching and guiding and growing through doing good things rather than being controversial and provocative to people. And what a guy he is, and he doesn't rise to people pressuring him and giving him shit. And he's a really positive person, and there's a lot of people like that. Chris Williamson, Mint, Alex Hormozy, really good. So there's some really good people out there that if only people spent more time focusing on the good quality role models, which we probably had more of back in the day, compared to some of these assholes that seem to be coming through that are getting attention for being controversial.
Yeah, HS. Bastard.
But it's people like that. But then again, if people really knew him, they'd know. I'm not saying I do, but a lot of what he says is purposeful for the whole point of gaining attention and saying things that people will get mad at or laugh at him for. Now, to me, it's just stupid, because if a whole room of people thinks you're an idiot, then regardless of whether you are or aren't, it doesn't really matter, does it? But it's that sad reality that what people are doing nowadays, they don't care. They just want views because they know they can monetize views.
It's like the modern day Joey Essex, by the sounds of it.
It's a good point, yeah. He goes on like he's an idiot and plays a fool knowing full well that people are going to laugh, watch, and create an image of him in their heads that he can then monetize. The same thing.
Yeah, he's flipping watch on his ankle.
I don't know where they come up with it, but yeah, it's things like that. It's a sad reality. But I think kids need to be left to be kids. I think they need to be disciplined and taught respect from a young age. I think they need more time with each other to be sort of free and less sort of control with all the policing and rules and cameras, and it just needs to be left to be kids, but with a firm set of rules and guidance in place that if they go too far across the line, they can be brought back and reined in, and that is where the respect comes from. And I just think
100%.
they need to be left to be kids for a bit longer, and
not let them vote.
certainly not let them vote. That's not allowing them to be kids, putting pressure on like that. I remember a lot of kids, even through our time, it was like there's too much pressure is fucking homework, let alone deciding on whether Brexit is a good deal, a good decision or not.
Yeah. Flower Project was about as stressfully up for me. But
yeah, it's wild that that's where they're at with things, but leave kids to be kids. They're the next generation in the future of the country, and if God knows we're relying on them, because we'll need them. We will need them to be as proficient and as useful as possible, because when we're old and we need looking after, if the country's in a same, or God forbid, a continuous downward spiral that it's in now, we're, never mind retiring, mate, but we are going to be working until we're 85 years of age, and we're going to be in the shit.
No money
no
left.
one's going to be looking after us, so apart from ourselves. So you got to invest in the younger generation. Let them be kids for a little bit longer. Stop policing them on some of the freedoms that they're allowed and should have, but also discipline and make sure the rules are in place for the good habits.
Good advice.
So what do you reckon? Are kids growing up too fast? Is it a problem? Is it something that we need to be mindful of? Do we need to add more discipline? Or do you think that actually we made the right decisions, giving kids free rein to cause havoc and decide what's best for them themselves? I personally think that children under the age of 18 really need more guidance and more help so that they can get the best out of their lives. So we are the ones responsible for doing that. Set the example. Remember that you are the ones that they're watching. You are the role model, and make sure that you are doing the best job for them. Remember though, like, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video.